Hello, and welcome to the 23rd episode of Last Attempt, a World of Warcraft Guildcast. I'm your host, Squirrelthug, and joining us again is Templar Ivanhoe.
What up, Yins?
This week, the 12.1 PTR datamine cracked open player housing. We've got previews of the interiors. CurseForge's Addon Trials contest is down to 10 finalists, with community vote closing before winners are announced on the 15th. Blizzard announced an Ion Hazzikostas Q&A for next Friday on their Discord. So I believe that is I know I've got it saved here. Do you remember the name of that Discord, of their community channel?
The WoW portal room.
Yes, the WoW portal room. The last Q&A that we had was with Holly Longdale, and it felt very much like a kind of just free form, just kind of filling out the crowd, just doing whatever. And hopefully this is a little more loose in that way with Ian. And also, Wowhead's model viewer just got physics, so everything kind of looks proper as it should, and you're able to see animations. So if you want to see your sword and the and the spell effect that you put on that, you can run it through animations and see what that looks like. So that's pretty cool. We are going to start with our roundtable. Templar, what have you been up to this last week in World of Warcraft?
For me, like I mentioned before, I was leveling up my warrior, got her to 90 finally, and I've been slowly gearing her up just through delves and such. And so I'm probably going to, like tomorrow, try to do some start her in some like M plus, like start her in M zeros and etc., and get her up as a protection warrior. I've been
Nice.
actually having fun as Fury. The unfortunate reality is that Arms is not competitive, and I'm finally having to make my peace with that. Um,
Competitive for
because
DPS, like in raid?
yeah, even in Mythic Plus, it just doesn't pull the numbers that it should. So it's really just Fury or protection, you know.
Okay.
Hope hopefully with the next patch they'll fix that, but it's an unfortunate reality. But I have been having fun playing as Fury. I know like Dangle and the other people who play Warrior will be happy with that. Um, and I'll probably start on my Druid through the Turbulent Timeways, level her up as a Guardian, just to see how that is. So yeah, just doing a lot of leveling and just trying things out.
Okay, so you're going for the what is it, like the sample platter of tanks?
Exactly. Just trying to you know, not only try out different tanks, but I'm interested in finally sort of getting more skill in the other tanks. Uh, uh, expanding my horizons, as it were.
Yeah, because you've been prop paladin main for like forever, right?
Yep, since the beginning, back in Wrath.
Yeah, that's impressive. I was running rogue for the longest time, and I think a few years ago, maybe right before COVID, was when I decided that it would be really cool to try out some other classes, and it's been fun, but sometimes it's a little like I like the rogue, but I have more fun participating in certain activities, and like a healer
Right.
or a tank are better for those things for me. And so I've in going into other parts of the game, I've sort of pulled away from the like rogue main. But yeah, it's still fun, you know.
Yeah, and I was even thinking of maybe uh, starting on expanding on to healers just for the fun of it. Way back in Wrath, the only real healer I ever like did just through the dungeons was a disc priest, and I remember having a lot of fun with it. But that was eons ago, and I haven't touched my priest since then. So
Oh man. Well, when you I'll probably be a couple days behind you, but I've got a balanced druid that I just leveled up, and I'll be gearing. I'm going to try to gear that druid for balance specifically, because I'm trying to flex with Eowyn.
Hmm.
But even though the overlap for the gear is pretty similar between Resto Druid and Balanced Druid, I don't know. Maybe I'll find some more success if I learn it from the ground up. And I've been leveling this character Resto and Balance, and so I've kind of started to get the hang of it, but I'm, I still got a way to go.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I'll jump in with some heroics for you in a couple days. So, so halfway through next week, I could run some heroics with your tank
Oh, definitely.
or warrior. It's a just a DPS warrior, right?
Actually, I am gonna the plan is to special or to be a tank on the warrior. So,
Oh,
you
nice.
know,
Okay, cool.
so yeah,
Yeah, instant cues.
exactly. It'll be perfect.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. For me, last week in WoW, I actually finished leveling up a balance shoot as I was saying. Um, and I'm not, it was really close to the reset, so I'm not really sure if I got that last week or like the week prior or this last week. But it had just happened. I've only been 90 for a few hours on that character now, and just trying to get it leveled up and try some new things. Ritual sites is something I was taking a look at because I heard that it was really good for just sort of a catch up mechanic. And also, at the end of that, when you've leveled up your ritual sites, it's almost like delves. You've got to do one, two, three, four, and five before you can unlock six.
Right.
But six will give you five mythic crests. And I've gone through a couple of ritual sites so far. And while I'm under geared, so it is taking a little bit of time, and I'm kind of sneaking around in stealth, mostly in cat form. I have I've been able to finish it fairly quickly. Not as quick as others would suggest, right? And I'm
Hmm.
not level 6 yet. But I imagine when I have the gear and I'm going after level 6s, I can get it to around a 15-minute time, and that's basically 20 mythic crests an hour.
Yeah, and I think it is still, with this patch, that's still the fastest way to get and farm Mythic Crest now.
Yeah, so I think, and it is easy, and I'm kind of, so I figured I'd level it up using the Balance Druid and get some practice in and grab some gear for that one while I'm at it, and kind of it's also supposed to, I know that if I'm going in there and getting the field, I think they're field accolades. Is that what they're called?
Yes.
Yeah, there takes like 500 or 700 or something of them to get a piece of gear, but it's like, I think a heroic piece of gear, maybe.
Yeah, you can get both champion and heroic. It just depends on how many, field accolades you want to spend and such.
Yeah, so that looked like a good option as well for the catch-up mechanic, and then I'll be double dipping in grabbing those mythic crests because I already bought all of the nebulous void cores from Decimus all in one shot because it's a sort of catch-up mechanic, right? Like
Hmm.
we're in the 12th week of this, and so I was able to just buy all 24 void cores.
Oh, you're right, right, right. So
Cost
then,
me like 60K.
yeah.
But I mean, so I'm primed and ready. Once I do enough ritual sites and grind those out, get enough field accolades, grab a few pieces of gear that's going to allow me to jump into. I mean, I can already probably jump into LFR right now, barely hit 220. Get some gear with that, and kind of just the gears sort of going to start trickling in. It's a trickle at first, but once I'm able to really utilize the void core rolls, I mean, it's it's done. It's a done deal.
Yeah, and I think this is still just, we're seeing an overall increase in the ability not only to um, use and play alts, but we're really seeing the ability to really get gear really fast. And now, obviously, when the next major patch comes, it's going to slow down. But I do hope that things like the ritual sites or their equivalents, my guess is they're still going to have them, will still be there, like, after a certain point in time where you can then farm mythic crests again, really fast. But
I hope we
really,
get some updates to the ritual sites, or maybe there's
yeah,
like a version of them on the coiled isle.
my guess is there probably will be, similar to how with each season of delves they'll either add a new delve or they
Love that.
change. Yeah, and they'll
The
change some.
Undermined was such like remember when that patch came out?
Mhm.
Not only did we get delves there, but we got the added storylines in some of the other delves, and those are so much fun because they were genuinely drastically different than everything that we launched with.
Right, exactly. And of course, now that we're getting to the next major patch, they're like, for example, the tier sets are going to be more complicated. So hopefully that sort of, that more complication gets into the delves and everything as well.
Yep, looking forward to that. So yeah, I think they're gonna take all of these systems and bring them forward. They've already talked about the nebulous void cores, the ascendant void cores. Those are all coming, and even to the point that we can sort of see that in season three, it's likely that whatever ascendant void cores we have in that version, we're going to be able to ascend even more pieces of gear because they're adding
Ooh,
right
I
now.
didn't catch that.
So right now we can ascend our trinkets and our weapons.
Right.
So if you it's 6 out of 6 mythic or heroic, but mythic is obviously best. You'll get 9 item levels attached to that, and it's ascended. Then we got a little bit of extra, some pieces filled in that weren't trinkets or weapons from Rotmeyer, and so those are also 9 item levels above 6 out of 6 mythic. And then in the next patch in 12.1, there will be venomous ascendant void cores, and those will not only be able to ascend what you can already ascend, weapons and trinkets, but you'll be able to now ascend. I forget what it is, and I don't want to get it wrong, but it's like 2 or 3 other pieces of slots, like different slots. And so as we sort of go forward, it seems that we may sort of have like this ascendant thing going on where a lot of our gear is where there's a normal track of getting gear through raids and dungeons and such, and then there's like the added little bit more you can go and ascend all your gear.
Yeah, especially with how hard the raids now are. Now, again, we're still on the cusp on the whole removing weak auras and other uh, add-ons that can calculate things. And this will be the first sort of mm, step forward from that because we're going into the next set of raids. And obviously Blizzard and Ian himself specifically talked about how they intended obviously to um, make the raids harder for the race to world first, to really test the guilds. And he did mention that maybe they should have nerfed them a little sooner and such. So what'll be interesting to see is, what the timeline for the Ascendant void cores will be to see, is it going to be a lot earlier that we're going to see them? Is it going to be, like so many weeks into it when raids or I'm sorry, guilds are really starting mythic raids? I'd be interested or will be interested to see that going forward.
If I remember correctly, we are going to get 12.1, and then it's like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks after the launch of 12.1 is when the Ascendant Void Cores will come out.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, I know we covered it before, but a lot of the stuff is 12.1 PTR. It just dropped. So much of it is going to change between now and then. We're gonna probably from now till then we'll be pointing out like really major things that are changing or implementations that are being dropped on the PTR. Um, especially when it comes to housing, because there's some pretty big updates coming to housing. I think um, there's they like to follow a feedback, and so that will be something that we'll probably report on. But for the most part, we're gonna have to check in on 12.1 much closer to its release.
Yeah, a lot of changes, a lot, especially not just raids, dungeons, etc., but a lot of class changes. I know I was starting to read up before we started recording on the fact that arcane mages are getting a major changes, I should say, but I know one of them is a arcane bolt that's basically it's going to proc like the frost mage's glacial spike, which will be interesting to see. And it looks like the arcane mage community is happy about that. So
It's a
um,
new spell, right?
yeah, basically it'll proc, like I said, like the arcane mage, or I'm sorry, the frost mage's glacial spike. The way for the frost mage works is that once you hit 5 icicles, that turns your frostbolt into the glacial spike, and so you use it. It does a bit of AOE damage. Um, in this case, with the arcane mage, it's similar, and will turn your arcane blast into arcane bolt, and it does actually even more AoE damage than the Frost Mage's Glacial Spike, which is interesting.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Love that for arcane mages. I'm gonna have to dust off mine and, and get that leveled.
Yeah, I will say I'm still on the Frost Mage is best mage train. So
Yeah, of course. I think I have like two mages. One is definitely a frost. But getting on to our first news item, we've got patch 12.1, some housing news. And in here, we've got some new exteriors for the houses that when they were data mined, and I believe they're the large exteriors. So we don't have access to those yet. I believe you have to reach housing level 12 in order to unlock that. We can only go up to 10 right now. So once we're able to unlock 12 and we unlock these large housing exteriors, they seem to take up a large portion of the plot. Right now, it's just a giant pink cube. On the PTR, if you choose that option, it's you can't see anything basically, and the model isn't in yet. But the models that are in the build that they've been able to data mine are the interiors, and these look absolutely beautiful. They're called artisanal rooms. There's 16 rooms and four styles, and if you've paid attention to housing in the styles that you can style your walls and your rooms, those are the four options that you basically have: Belemeth, Orgrimmar, Silvermoon, and Stormwind themes.
yeah, I will say, as a longtime Alliance player, the Orgrimmar interiors really look, HD. Um, I I don't know how to put it, but it's I'm used to
The
seeing
Orgrimmar
the
theater looks cool.
yeah, I was gonna say that one in particular, like with the sort of skylight in it and everything.
Strom is gonna love that, dude. It's gonna be so
Yeah.
cool for his arena.
Um, but you can really tell, like you said, that they're putting in the work for these and really um, going at it with their artists.
The Belemeth Temple Room is it's unique. I really like it's an empty room, but it's got a really rich base, right? Like there's like this altar and the staircase on both sides of the room that goes to this upper level that's around the edge of the room. It just looks so cool. And it's granted, like we could have probably built something similar to this, but having these artisanal rooms added in, like it's wonderful because you can really find some inspiration here. Like we said, 16 rooms. There's so many options that you have now.
Yeah, and I think it was Daddy's room, the one room. She did change the um, sort of the walls and the skylight in it, so it was like all dark and sort of starry. So yeah, like you said, I'm guessing that we'd be able to still keep that sort of thing.
I mean, the only thing that I could even imagine being a downside to this is seeing the potential for all these different variations of these rooms, of these artisanal rooms. I want all of them. But I really couldn't fit them all in my budget right now in the housing. But as we go up in levels, perhaps instead of giving us another house, like they just allow us to extend our current house even more. Um, I'm not really sure how they're going to go about that. But I want to use all of these spaces. But I think with the blueprints, it's going to make that really easy. You know, that if you don't mind switching, like you just like rotate through all of your houses like a Rolodex.
Right. And now that we have the ability to um, export and save our rooms, um, you know, just being able to switch it out real quick. And then let's say you want to change something, it's just getting better and better.
You know, being able to do an entire house or a single room, I'm really hoping we're gonna be able to get the ability to swap out a room, even if I'm not swapping that room with a blueprint. If I'm just swapping it out with like an empty different room, I would like it to not destroy everything past it.
Right.
So that's the only that's in the way that everything is stacked and connected. They it's like a tree, and if you cut the branch off, like everything goes away. And I do not like that. I think you should really be able to just swap out rooms, entire rooms, and even the edges are going to be rough, sometimes, but
Hmm.
you just go in and edit them. I think, yeah, I hope that comes with the blueprints.
Agreed.
And on to our next news item, we've got the Addon Trials by CurseForge. And I took a look at some of these, um, actually all of them. There's only 10. They're pretty easy to read over. The descriptions aren't very detailed, but they've got a couple screenshots and they sort of explain um, what it is. Some of the screenshots are like a GIF, so they actually show what it is. The first one is called Coolinator. That's probably the coolest one on the list, the one that I would vote for personally. It is um, this sort of drag and drop cooldown bar. So right now with the cooldown bar, the cooldown manager that you have default by Blizzard, there's not a lot of options for what you get to watch there, and I'm sure they have their reasons for why it's limited. It's actually, I think, ridiculous that it is limited in any way. I think you should be able to put any passive, any buff, any spell that you have, and there should be a whole menu for that, and you should be able to drop them in there. Um, so I think the what I'm seeing here is there's this drag and drop interface, so I'm not really sure how they're going to handle buffs, right? Because there's certain buffs that you get that isn't named after a spell or something, right? That you can just drag in there. Um, I believe abundance is the one for Resto Druid, and the more abundance stacks that I get, rejuvenation creates those stacks, and then I can get cheaper regrowths and such, right? That's not a draggable thing. I can't just drag that from somewhere and put it in here. So I think that this add-on is cool, but it will have its limitations, and I just much rather use the cooldown manager.
Right. Do you know if it works with the cooldown manager? I haven't tried it out myself.
I haven't installed any of these and tried them out. Ellesmere UI, I'm genuinely surprised to see this on here.
Yeah, I was too. Hasn't Ellesmere
Uh,
been like
I
way
thought it was
before?
well. Okay, so initially it was um midnight launch, and then they brought it back to midnight beta. So he could have gotten it started somewhere during the beta, and it would have counted.
Gotcha.
So yeah, as long as you started it or it like released from that date and going forward, which I think was March or something in 2025. Because Mina didn't launch until what, earlier this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I guess the reason why I was surprised to see this on here was because, um, according to just the way that people have talked about this online from several sources, uh, he vibe coded, whoever Ellesmere is, vibe coded this add-on.
Yeah.
And while it does work and such, that was sort of like a narrative that I think everybody knew about. And so with the explicit no AI, no generated, no vibe coded add-ons, it's really weird to see this 20. I could be wrong. The people that I heard speaking about this could have been mistaken. Maybe he has experience in this or hired somebody, because I think the idea behind it was that like they didn't know any Lua, and Lua's not complicated. You can learn it pretty quickly, but like an entire UI overhaul is a heavy task. It's like trying to rewrite LVUI, and that's kind of crazy. And I just yeah, for a single solo developer, it can be done. I've seen people do it, but without a track record, I don't know.
Yeah, and like we said when this was announced, like one of the reasons I like the idea, and I'm sure you did, is, you know, coding is not just something, you get done like it's a I don't know, like building a house, but it's also an art form. Especially like I know if you ever listen to This Week in Tech, Leo Laporte at the end of the year, there's this like Advent calendar for coding, which presents like a bunch of different challenges for you to do
Oh,
every
nice.
day. Um, and in so doing, you could do it in like, now obviously you don't have to do this. This is just something fun to do, but they present these challenges and you could write it in like Python or Rust or C and just sort of, experiment, learn, have fun. And for this, especially for something like World of Warcraft, it's even more of an art form because you're interacting with players and how they use things. And it's some of them are utility, like the one of them is easy find, which is like I believe it's like spotlight for, I think that's what it's called for Apple Macs. um, and but with the vibe coding and such, you know obviously CurseForge didn't want it, and for me, I don't want it because it really, I think, takes away from what what this is about for players, what this is about for the contest. You're not having the computer do it for you. You're actually going in there and doing it yourself and everything. So I just hope that, assuming Ellesmere would win at any point, or any of the add-ons that would win, that they weren't actually vibe coded, and that CurseForge really did investigate into it.
Yeah, I mean, I as far as I know from what people were saying, like they're the add-on is just available, and any add-on, because of the way that things are, they're not packaged in a way that they obscure the code. Like all of it is out there, so everyone can just see all the code and how it's managed and everything. And so anybody can take a look at the code base and check it out. I think that if there was somebody who was trying to prove that they didn't vibe code a an add-on, what any other developer would do when creating any piece of software, and this would be, I would consider this software, even though it's a sort of add-on that runs inside of another piece of software, it's still principles still apply. You can check, and if you wanted, I feel like the standard that they should have had would be, and I guess it'd be hard because they retroactively were like, oh, well, let's push the thing all the way back to the when beta released, and we'll accept any add-on from there. Because then you couldn't just establish a rule of like, hey, put it up on GitHub, it's free, and then we'll be able to see all of your diffs. So every time you push any code to your code base and you update it, there's there's a diff and shows you the the differences between the last version of it and this new version that you just pushed. And that's it's how Git works or whatever, but it just sort of acts as a receipt because LLMs and cloud agents, even local LLMs and such, they can generate a lot of code very quickly, much faster than someone can type. But then also, what do we consider like vibe coded? Because there's an add-on or a software piece of software called Cursor, and as you are typing in your code base and you're doing your own coding, right? Your cursor's in there, you're typing away. It will suggest things based on what you're doing and what you've planned out. Maybe you have a ticket that you're focusing on right now, and the AI knows about that, and you're doing coding, with some language, and it sort of understands the context of everything and just suggests to you the next entirety of the function. And you're like, oh, okay, that looks good. Hit tab and done. Right? Like, is
Right.
is that vibe coding? You're still typing some of the things. There's a couple functions in there that you might have to like wrangle in, but for the most part, you're just like, oh, hey, this is really good. Did a good job with this. Let me hit tab. You know, like, does that count? Maybe that was how Ellesmere did it, and that was an argument that that doesn't count as vibe coding. But you know, I think you can see like there's there's a certain level of productivity for certain people that jumps, and I don't have any problem with like developers using AI to help themselves like speed themselves up, especially in terms of that, right? Like if you're inside of your own IDE and you're coding and it's just throwing boilerplate at you, that's standard code that is just repeated from every single other code base that's ever used this thing, right? Like the boilerplate doesn't really do you really need to write that? So like I don't it's such a gray area. Where do we draw the line? How do we define vibe coded? How do we because if you even if you're not vibe coding and letting the agent do it and you're in there with something like this, you're still going to generate so much more code than you would have before or anybody would have before. Like the lines of code that you're generating.
Right. I see
So
what
you
you
could
mean.
tell.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying. So you could tell, like that would be the way to tell. I was just under the impression that this person had vibe coded, at least even in part, their add-on, and like how it's just weird to like put that rule in the front and then maybe backpedal on it in some way.
Hmm. Right. Exactly. And that's where I'm in the same boat as you. What was their intention if it is vibe coded, and they said, you know, well, the contest is for non-vibe coded things, but I think there was other controversy with the Ellesmere UI as well. I think not just the vibe coding. I think it was like he.
Well, it was able to display something on the player frames or unit frames. No, not unit frames. The bar, like the health bar for enemy players. And
Oh,
mostly
okay.
mobs in like Mythic Plus, like there was something it was able to display that you couldn't display before, or maybe it was like your own players, what their cooldowns were or something. Yeah, it was like a recent update, and people were confused as to how they got access to something that was supposed to be a secret value, I think.
Mm. See, then that also is a little sneaky. If
Yeah, I
there's
mean, it's
calls into
based
question.
on based on the Lua and the API and like basically the way that like Blizzard has laid all these things out. There's certain things that people just like can't do or shouldn't do, or Blizzard is trying to obfuscate certain aspects of the UI, and they haven't been fully successful. But they have mentioned, Ian just mentioned that at hour-long interview, that they're doing something in 12.1. In 12.1, they're going to be able to address these things with some clever workarounds that they've thought up, and these things that the community has pointed out and said, hey, you said you weren't going to do that, and now I'm looking at it and you're doing it. So what's going on with this? Um, that's the kind of he was very vague about it, but it was basically pointing to things like that where people are concerned that these add-ons are doing things that either other add-ons can't do, or in in the rule set of what is allowed, giving that kind of information isn't allowed. Blizzard wants you to get that information in some other way, or in the way that they're feeding it to us, and you have to do thinking. It's the computational stuff, and I'm not really sure how that falls in with doing computation or whatever the feature was. But I know it was a shock to people, and I think that was specifically what Blizzard was talking about in tightening up these things and closing these holes when they released 12.1.
Right.
So also weird that it's in the competition.
I know. It's
But he's a famous streamer, Twitch streamer, right?
mhm.
So there you go. I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I mean, it
one
might.
one would hope not, but unfortunately, this is the real world.
Yeah, and again, this is a video game, and these are like private communities and such, and so like how they conduct themselves is really up to them. There's not really any like major oversight. There's not nearly enough people watching these to like, swing one way or the other, right? I don't know. I just definitely controversy. So weird. I don't know how to approach that. Um, but yeah. And on to our next news item. We have the WoW Portal Room Q&A with Ion Hazzikostas, and that's going to be this Friday, this upcoming Friday, July 17th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Like we were saying earlier, the last one was with Holly, and it was very interesting interview. It was our Q&A, and she answered a lot of questions, even asked the audience a question, and I think we got a lot out of that, which was really great. And I'm looking forward to this because Ian's sort of been the front man for us for a little while now, and especially in recent interviews, he's been really forthcoming with a lot of information. I think this is going to be an even better Q&A than the one with Holly Longdale, which was amazing.
Yeah, and for those who um, might not have seen the announcement, if you want to be asking any of the questions, you'll go through the. You can't ask the questions directly in the portal room itself. You have to go through the partnered community discords. I believe that includes like your class discords, for example, Paladin, Druid, and such. And so definitely, if you have questions, go through them. The discords are available on places like Wowhead and Icy Veins if you're looking up your class, information for like stat priority and stuff. They'll have that there. So yeah, like you were saying, Ian has been I think it's not just like he's been forthcoming, but like I think Blizzard itself has learned that, especially after Shadowlands. I mean, people will keep talking about that. I'll keep talking about it, but after Shadowlands and how negative it was, the feedback was, and it was deserved, because of how they didn't not only they didn't allow alts, but they had the sort of attitude that what they were saying was always the best for the players, in that the players didn't necessarily know what they were doing or what they wanted. But ever since then, not just Ian, but Blizzard has been really forthright in asking for more feedback in what to do, and I think in allowing that, Ian has been um, even more open, arguably, than he would be. Like again, we come back to the GDC talk, where initially he was going to give it before the pandemic hit, um, and he was saying at the beginning of that talk how much different his talk was going to be compared to when he was giving his talk. I believe it was only about a year ago. Maybe it was right before midnight. I forget. Um, but just in how much the feedback from the players has been necessary, and the um, how we even interact with the game. I forget what the actual term is, but theirs is a term for, let's say, you or I were, there's a certain path that everybody takes, and this path has a nice looking, it's, a nice cemented walkway, like let's say to get to the bus, and it's a nice walkway. It's been designed to use just to get from your house to the bus. But you and everybody in the neighborhood, you don't take that pathway, because you and everybody in the neighborhood know it's quicker to just go through the grass, and go through the grass, and it, let's say it shaves off 30 seconds. And even though this nicely designed, easy to walk way um, uh, path was made by the city, everybody chooses this, just this path through the grass, because it saves them 30 seconds. And learning that players sort of have the same idea, whether it's the best stats or best talents, has really changed in how they think about making the game, or how players do things. And so I think we're seeing that in both Holly and Ian's, taking questions, answering questions, and just getting that you know sort of being with the players, and really seeing and hearing what we need or want.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. It does feel a lot more like that more recently, and I know what you were talking about, but I didn't know what the name was, and I feel like I've heard it said in many different ways before. But I looked it up, and apparently it's called a desire path. And I always thought that
Okay.
they looked like a game trail. Like if you're ever out in nature and you're looking for a certain animal, you can typically find a well beaten path somewhere in like the
Right,
tall
right.
grass and stuff. And like, let's say you're looking for rodents or rabbits and such, you'll see a well beaten path somewhere, and then you'll see like rabbit poop along along that trail, and you're like, oh, hey, I know exactly who was here, kind of thing, right? And the same sort of well beaten path you'll see cutting across like a really fancy, nice, artisanal sidewalk that goes around a bunch of trees and such, and it sort of makes this really nice thing. And it's like, okay, I can take the long way around, or I can just cut right across this 10 feet of grass and go to the
Yep.
exit like I wanted to.
Yeah, and I think if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's the exact image he has of the scooter there is the one he
Yeah.
used.
Yeah, it's just it's great to but exactly that. They're like you were saying before, they were just designing these things like, hey, look at all this. This is what you should be doing, and the players were just taking the path of least resistance. And while it is true that players will sometimes not choose the best way to do something, they'll take all the fun out of something just to be as efficient as possible. And sure, that happens sometimes. That happens a lot of the time. But I think that there was a sort of thought that that is an excuse to do what they think is best instead of what is
Yes.
actually best for us. And what they're doing now is being really attentive to how we do things and what we say we want, and then sort of find a way to give us that same treatment, but also like just being very conscious of the fact that we will burn ourselves out.
Exactly, exactly.
That's mostly the thing, is we burn ourselves out a lot, and they have to keep us from doing that. Like the game is designed for fun, so it's like, hey, take this drug, but maybe not too much. Like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna eat this whole cake.
Right, and sometimes those limits are good, like not, like you said, not burning ourselves, for example, on reputation, and making it warband or something like that. So um, but it's just
Warband
such.
was great for that. It
Yeah.
unlocked it. It sort of let you do it in any way that you wanted.
Yeah, and it's just such a different and I know like I said, we keep saying this, but it really is such a different Blizzard and a different stance than they've had in the past, you know. So it's just, you know, always good to see and glad to hear.
Yeah. And Ian's been really good with a lot of this stuff. I mean, the last interview genuinely surprised me that he would um, bring up a mistake that I think mostly it got buried under all the other mistakes that came with 12.0.5 and the other things that happened with that. And um, he sort of was like, "Hey, you guys skipped over this one. Let's reopen this wound."
Right.
But it was great.
And yeah, and willing to do that really shows, you know, a lot of growth and confidence.
I personally have a lot more trust in Ian and Blizzard as a whole from just sharing that little thing, right? I think
Agreed.
those kinds of things go a long way, and Ian definitely understands that.
Right.
But I mean, even with that in place, do you think that the way that the portal room is set up kind of gives them an opportunity to avoid things they really don't want to talk about?
That's a harder question because I'm not sure what, you know, arguably every community Discord is going to have a little bit of difference in what they consider good questions or not. Um, hmm. And obviously they have their own rules. And again, obviously they have to work with Blizzard, so they're not going to put anything horrendous in there. But my guess is that to an extent it does, but at the same time, one of the problems is, and whenever I see a Q&A on anything, it's always like, "Oh man, I wish you could ask one more question or ask about this or ask about that." And realistically, any one person only has so much time to answer all these different
Hmm.
questions. Um, but at the same time, they've been really willing to rework a lot of classes. Um, we all know about hunters and is it explosive shot or the one that keeps they keep removing and keep putting back in because um, it just, you know, never works out with them removing it. But I think with the way things are, um, they are willing to see um, the harder questions. But again, there's what? How many classes do we have now in the game with how many specs, and we have to ask about the Mythic Plus and raids and stuff. Um, I think they're just going to try to answer as many as possible. Maybe they'd avoid one or two, but they've been pretty open. I just don't see that as a an issue or anything.
Yeah, I I think this is gonna be a good Q&A, and especially if Ian is the one who's picking the questions, you know? If he gets to take a look at these things, I feel like he's definitely gonna pick some that are gonna be just the most impactful for what the community wants. He seems to be really dialed into to kind of what we need as a community, and they do have a lot of their developers and sort of team leads across the company going into interviews, and like it's not just Ian as the face of it all the time, you know?
Right, right.
So I like the way he's approaching these things, and it's really good that he's the head of this. But, you know, Ian's getting old. I'm sure he wants to retire at some point, you know, take his riches and run. Maybe go work on a different game. Maybe he's got inspiration like, you know, was it Jeff Kaplan? And
Yes.
I mean, was it there was another developer that just recently got hired at Riot, you know, to do their MMO, and then there's Ghostcrawler, right, who was working for Riot, but now he's going and doing his own thing. And all these developers, you know, they've worked for Blizzard for so long, and they went and did their own thing. Like maybe Ian has some aspirations, he wants to go do something else, um, or just retire, you know. And I hope that we're gonna get a community lead like this that's just as good as Ian, like a game design lead, who's going to be just as forthcoming with us, and kind of respecting the trust that Ian has built.
Right, and I do hope he has some sort of uh, I don't know if it would be the assistant director or someone who he's really taken under his wing that when he does retire will sort of uh, uh, pick up the game and continue where he left off. I know
Ooh,
he
like a
did,
successor.
yeah, and I know he did mention something sort of similar where in that same GDC talk where he did um, pick up the game and became the successor game director. But there was like in his idea was that he was going to continue where it was left off with like Legion, and that's where we then started down the path for Battle of Azeroth with sort of a legendary, but wasn't quite a legendary with the neck piece, the Heart of Azeroth. Um, and that sort of made things kind of worse. And we, kind of kept stumbling until Shadowlands. Um, but at the same time, I do hope that sort of experience, if he does have a successor, say, hey, man, you don't necessarily have to continue, the same path that I took. But, if things change, like, for example, people get older, we don't necessarily have enough time to do all the things in one day. That was one of the major changes, with things like warband reputation and the way raids are, and even having delves where you can get sort of starter gear. You don't have to invest a lot of time into it. You know, um, making sure that his
Delves are great for
successor,
parents.
yeah, exactly, and just making sure his successor knows that you know these kind of things not only do change, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to change along with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to anything that Asha Sharma can do for the company, anything, any support that they can give to Blizzard that will allow Blizzard to take this IP and turn it into something else.
Hmm.
An anime, movie, TV series, like toys, a theme park. I don't care, man. Go big, you know, and hopefully that brings in fresh blood, and then we get a different game. We get this different direction that we're going to go. Hopefully, they're not going to forget about all the all the old people playing this game still, but
Right.
we'll have this sort of new direction that we're going to go in, or this new option, this new way to play the game that is listening to the feedback from these younger players who have more time, who I there's just it would be unfortunate if World of Warcraft stayed with the crowd, right? Because the crowd is aging. And if it stays with the crowd, when we all get to that age and we start to all fizzle away as a population, in our bracket, what is who's the game going to serve, right? Like it has to have longevity. I think
Hmm.
it's more important that it continues going rather than just staying convenient for me. I would like the convenience to be there, definitely. Um, but I'm really interested to see how Blizzard takes on the task of developing a game, if they're successful in this new campaign that they're obviously going after, to develop a game that is going to serve several different generations.
Yeah, and for her, which say Asha Sharma, you know, investing advertising money again. Like we all remember the old WoW commercials with like Mr. T and everything.
Hmm.
And it would be really nice if we had that again. And even I would love to have the WoW anniversary Mountain Dew again, you know, um,
Yeah.
and just sort of keep that going because we do the same thing with Call of Duty every year. Um, why not World of Warcraft?
Yeah, and I want to see some more Super Bowl ads.
Yes, that too.
That's probably the biggest, like it hit the big pop culture things, right? Like people are gonna see this, even if it's not an ad for the game, it's an ad for the anime. Like I want to see that at the Super Bowl. I always do something for Super Bowl, even if it's just me and my family, or I invite people over. But I I walk around and socialize during the game, and then I sit down and watch all the commercials. So it's a little backwards in my house because nobody really likes sports. But we have it on. It's fun. There's always a couple people who like to watch the game or so. Um, but that's how I've always done it. I always like to sit down and watch the commercials. And I don't know. Lately they haven't been that great. So I'd really like to see Blizzard come in and knock one out of the park.
Yeah, and could you imagine not just an anime, but them putting in like the next um, CG cinematic for the next expansion,
Ooh,
and have it in,
the high res one.
yeah, the high res 4K, just really put that in there
Because
and
the one
and
they did
just
this last time wasn't they made one, right? The
mhm,
Arator one was that 4K high res one, right? But the one that they released to everyone and launched with and showed everyone was the Liadrin cinematic, and that one was it was a much lower quality than the Arator one, and the Arator one was much closer to the quality that we saw with the War Within cinematic with
mhm.
Thrall and Anduin, and that and the Arator are the level that we're used to. I think there was a big confusion, and I don't really still understand why they mixed those up or released them in the way that they did because players expect that high resolution 4K cinematic with the launch.
Yeah, and moreover, I thought the Air Tour one really hit home a lot more. You
Oh
know,
yeah, it was so
no,
good.
I appreciate seeing Lady Beadrin and I apologize, I forget his name, or Lorthramar, that's it, and
Hmm.
seeing them and the Army of Light coming. That was really cool, especially as a paladin main. But the Air Tour one and the division between his family, between his father and mother, as well as um, um, uh, the temptation and sort of the fear that and now I'm blanking on her name. um,
Zelda?
Zalatath, that's it. that Zalatath is instilling in him, is starting to really affect him and is starting to shake his faith. And so, seeing that, really impactful. Um, so yeah, I'm like you. It was very confusing. So I'd love to see, why not do that? Put the Lady Liadrin one, that cinematic in the Super Bowl, or better yet, put the Air Tour one in there and but have it like end on like some like what actually is happening. Leave it on a cliffhanger or something.
Yeah, yeah, it would have been good. I mean, and and like you were saying, that Erator cinematic really hit home because it was really simple, but her narration, Zaltath's narration over that video, really pieced together what was happening, what we are coming to expect in this expansion. And um, I honestly hope that the story of the light is season 3
Right. Yeah. Same here.
because they brought it up in season 1 as a sort of intro storyline for leveling, and then season 1 has really been, you know, the raids, right? What raids have we gone after? And that's basically the storyline, the upper level storyline there. And season 2 is focused on Zoloman and the Amani and their lands and such over there. And but mostly, the Coiled Isle just off the coast of the Amani lands, but it's very troll oriented and such, right? Um,
Hmm.
but we're moving away from the light, and the light was the reason why we fight the paladins, which is crazy, right? To the reason why we kill what was that Lothraxian?
Yes.
He's dead now, because he went crazy. Like he made us do that. There was no way out of there. He was being ridiculous, and Decimus saw this and was just amused by it, and it worked out to his benefit that was happening. But in terms of the Arator cinematic, Zaltath knows so much about so many things, and that gives her this level of foresight that allows her to absolutely manipulate people because they're putting their trust in these systems they do not understand, but she does, or she knows she understands it much more than these mortals who are just getting a taste of it, right? Even an elf, right? As long as they live, but even though Eretor is pretty young, but even long-lived elves, I mean, they've been following the light forever, and they still don't know about this side of the light, right?
Right.
They've communed with the um what are Laura, what is her race? The Chandelier race?
Oh, I'm blanking on that too. Let's
They're
before
like
we
supposed to
embarrass
be
ourselves. Naru,
right?
that's it.
The Naru. The Naru are supposed to be like pure light. They're beings of light, whereas anything else is infused with light and transformed by light, kind of thing. This is a being of pure light, and it still has the ability to swap over to void. And so,
Right.
right, like
And
there's this connection that we don't know about that Zaltat does.
exactly. And whenever Illyria and I apologize, I forget his name. We're forgetting a lot, but the ethereal that taught her these things, and how to control the
Locust
void in
Walker.
her. Locust Walker, thank you. Um, he even mentions during the dungeon where this is the first time we see Laura. It's the seat of triumvirate, and this was back in at the end of Legion. He even mentions as part of the RP before you fight Laura that he's never seen a Naru turn to the void like this. Like they're like as far I don't know if we know actually how long the Ethereals have lived, but obviously they've lived long enough to make deals with Xalatath. But
Hmm.
anyway, um, he mentions how he'd never seen a Naru turn like that, so, like you said, even the Ethereals know things that, Ilaria didn't. And she was at least 1,000 years with the Army of the Light, and Turalian he's naturally a human, has lived more than 1,000 years. So um, there's just a tremendous amount of information that we don't know, and
And was that the light that did that to him?
I
That
believe
basically made
so.
him either like just live really, really long? Because the both of them basically got thrown into a portal and then they went on a 1,000-year war campaign and then came back to adult Eretor.
Yeah, I believe it was because of the light, and his campaigning. Um, Whenever
And they
he
were fighting the
disappeared.
Legion, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Or no, they were fighting the Void as well.
It was sort of my understanding, and I again apologize. I don't know too far
I
back,
think there's
but
a book.
yeah. Um, he was going. It wasn't just 1,000 years. Just sitting there doing nothing. Both he and Ilaria, and I believe the Lightforged Draenei, who were separated from the Draenei that we came to know because of their own fight against the Legion and such. Um, but yeah, I believe he was fighting the Void Legion, going from um, multiple planets or, you know, wherever it would take him, because I always forget that the Draenei and the Exodar is actually a ship, so
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, they were
um,
just off on a campaign in the Nether, and perhaps it's just a way to be like, oh, well, we don't really understand cosmology, but they really do. It's just that their space, the Nether's, is confusing and a mashup of things. Things get thrown into there all the time. It's like the in-between space where the Legion is, right? Like
mhm.
it's it's a big place, so you can get lost in there. There's no way to navigate back home unless you have like a crazy amount of magic or you find it. I mean, Sargeras was looking for Azeroth for a long time.
Yep. And that's also, what I hope to see is, you know, obviously we keep talking about the sword, and like you said, we want to see the Army of the Light, and hopefully we do see, Sargeras coming back at the end of this expansion. Maybe we won't defeat him for the end of here, but then for the end of the trilogy for the next expansion, that's when we get the real good stuff.
If I remember correctly, Sargeras is right now inside of a prison realm with Illidan hanging out with him and the Pantheon hanging out right above that.
I'm
The
not
end of
sure.
Legion, right? The end of Legion, you do all that thing, you fight him. The cinematic shows him stab the planet, get sucked into the portal, and then Illidan's like, "The fight's not over. I've got some stuff to do," and then
Right,
teleports away from that elf city that was just down the below.
right.
And then he shows up with his glaives, and like he's gonna beat Sargeras's ass for like an eternity. I don't know. But yeah, last I checked, there was something like that was happening, and he's just back to being like a or oddly enough, he's taken Maeve Shadow Song's um sort of role, right?
Yeah, and there is the whole thing with the Naru, like sort of forcing Illidan to become or to force him to work for them. You know, I
Hmm.
think they were trying to, or the Naru specifically, I forget which one, but was actually trying to force him to become sort of light forged, and then he um, obviously didn't want that and completely annihilated the Naru. And in that quest, and you actually grab the pieces of the Naru to try to sort of put her back together. Obviously, if memory serves, she doesn't really resurrect so much as you then have to reutilize her powers for different things.
Yeah, there's going to be some, I don't think that we have enough time in this expansion to like cover all those things, which is good,
No.
you know. Um but I'm so curious as to what the seasons in the Last Titans are going to look like. Like, do we get an extra season because they want to really like wrap things up? They
Hmm.
want some more time, or are they really going to be able to tie this Zalatath story up in 3 seasons? Um, but then also, it's really cool having very different raids and stuff. I don't want to do Void all 3 seasons.
Exactly, right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go with this. But Sargeras is supposed to come back in some way. They've hinted at Illidan coming back, or not even hinted, like very very open about Illidan coming back, right?
Hmm.
Sylvanas has just made a cameo very recently in one of the cinematics, and uh, yeah, I think there's this sort of Dark Souls meme that's online where it says something like, "Oh, like you beat the boss," and then I don't know, this thing pops up, and it's like, "Oh, like why does the boss's horse have a health bar?" And it's like another boss, and you're like, "Damn." And so it's kind of like that, where it's like Xalatath, thinks she won or whatever, and then it's like, "Hey, what's this red health bar at the top of my screen?" Like, "Oh shit!" Like
Right.
Sylvanas just shows up. I think that's kind of like how some of the things in Dark Souls have happened, where like you're just somewhere, and then like a huge red health bar is now at the top of your screen. You're like, "Oh damn, where's the boss? Where's the
Hmm.
boss?"
Hmm.
So yeah, that was she definitely was giving those vibes in that, and um I don't know what the deal is with Sylvanas and Xalatath, because Xalatath is insanely powerful, but and she's always messing with people. She's always trying to manipulate people. She's always taunting people. She's always taking the time to do something. She got out of there fast, real fast, and she was
Hmm.
scared.
I was gonna say, yeah. She even said that she didn't account for her.
Yeah, and she's got like all the master plans, right? She thought, I'm sure she knew about Shadowlands and all those other things in some way or another. And also, there's been, I mean, it might have been retcon, but there's a book that was, had some dragons talking to Thrall and talking about all these different dark things that have happened to Azeroth. Has basically been these shadowy hands in the background that have been manipulating all of these very powerful assets, all to the end of destroying the aspects in their entirety so that they're all completely gone, which are tools of the Titans, and then like I don't know, maybe something after that. But basically, it was a dragon, so of course his primary concern is like if the dragon aspects are being destroyed. So maybe doesn't have any foresight past that. But in at least in that book, it was mentioning that from their perspective and what they found out, there's this dark something in the universe somewhere. Maybe something we already know, maybe something we don't know at all about, but it's the reason why all of these things have been happening. Ever since Azeroth was discovered and the Legion founded and the army's been being sent here, right? Like those are never direct attacks. They were always manipulating different assets and then sending them through the dark portal to us to have the
Hmm.
orcs weaken us and do all this stuff. It's always been these like things these indirect attacks on us initially, and it's sort of like zooming out and then repeating that pattern again. So like Sargeras was like manipulating the Legion and these other things in Ner'zhul and all these other places to like do this stuff, but then also somehow um the jailer from way down there this whole time was like master planning this the entire time. But then, the books and some of these other things are saying that somebody even on the deeper end of that was manipulating the jailer, and then and I don't know how far this goes. I don't know how many nesting dolls we can open up.
Yeah, there's something about the planet and its people that's important to basically the rest of the universe, or not just the universe, but the cosmology, because I think that includes even like the Shadowlands and such. Um, but whatever it is, it's we're getting to that point where everything's about to get real.
Dude, I'm a demigod right now. Right? Like, sure, we're doing this power fantasy thing and such, but like classic WoW is much more sword and board, classic RPG kind of thing, right? You're running through the forest, you're literally on your feet running through the forest until like level
Right.
60, you know? Um, there's just a lot of old classic type of RPG elements there, and I love that. That's why I play classic. That's why I play hardcore. It's really fun. But retail is we're all these like super powerful gods. Like, dude, I think we can take on one of the aspects and we probably win.
Hmm.
And it's because there's not just a few of us, there are a lot of us.
Good old uh, champions. Or I couldn't
Yeah.
do that. That was bad. But
But I know what you're
champions.
going for. Yeah. There's yeah, always the champions. Yeah, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us out there. I mean, uh we're just super powerful now, and I'm interested where the story goes. Like, is it that Azeroth spawns? We've got this actual god that comes out of a planet. Is the most powerful of all the Titans. Is more powerful than all of them combined, perhaps, and even the first ones. You know, and what does that mean for the rest of us? Does Azeroth is Azeroth just like a god factory? Like
Hmm.
we're just making gods here now who are then moving across the cosmos and like enacting order on things, destroying the Legion for good, like wrangling in the void, or I don't know, like we can get really cosmic here, right? But also,
Right. Right.
the recent changes of like talking about going back onto the planet and opening more things up and revisiting old places, like I don't know. But I maybe it would be kind of boring if we got stuck on Azeroth.
Agreed. Yeah. I think eventually we'll have to, and I think it's a good idea, for us to venture off into the universe, especially like you said, once Azeroth, I don't know, becomes a Titan. Where will we go? Is maybe Azeroth the planet will still exist, but maybe Azeroth the Titan will essentially hatch from the Azeroth the planet's egg, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then we might still have the planet, but we won't have Azeroth the Titan herself. Um,
Yeah.
which I think would be a good idea for a story, because maybe the powers of Azeroth and our powers could sort of be taken away because maybe Azeroth the Titan has to go and fight, and we might have to follow her to a different planet. And then maybe we could have, our powers sort of manifest from this other planet or from Azeroth herself. We don't
I
know.
mean, we just become a different faction, right? Like if we really think about
Hmm.
it, we'll look at the Legion, and there's the. I mean, Sargeras was the leader for the Legion, and he hired all the Draenei to be the commanders because he needed intelligent, powerful in magic commanders to take over. And so that's where that deal came from with Argus and them giving up that planet and such. Um, but there's like this huge, almost infinite army, right? And they're continuously resurrecting kind of thing, right? That's us. Like we're just gonna be
Right.
the next Legion. Like that's and with Azeroth as the commander of that army, and all of us beneath that, then it's like, okay, what kind of campaigns were the Legion on? Okay, well take a look at Val and Noctal, right?
Right.
Like there one of those was like a Legion planet, I believe, Val, right?
I believe it's if so it's complicated because both had some sort of purpose. Val, they're not sure at all.
Oh, because
You
they
know,
found in the archives, right? There was the
yeah.
archives of these things. Yeah.
They specifically mentioned something like to the effect that the some of the legions who went to Val not only didn't like it, but it was almost sort of a punishment.
Yeah, I just
Um,
recently did it. I was reading the quest text there. It's like, yeah, they don't. And I was like, wait, so does that mean this is just going to be really easy because it's all the rejects, and I'm just going to like destroy everyone here?
yeah, and so we're not sure exactly with Val, but at the very least, Nagtel, they mentioned how they were transporting and harvesting energy from it. So what these things really have to do, and energy, that's easier to understand, but why would they be, sort of having a interest in Vow, even if it's just like their um some sort of guard ships, to make sure nobody's encroaching on their territory, and
Yeah.
then those who are having to act as the guards are really, agitated and don't want to do it. So, why would
Well,
that be?
they apparently, according to the descriptions in the quest text there, the blizzards on that planet shred their spaceships, which are huge and massive. So, like, whatever
Mm,
storm is going on there, it's probably a really large planet, and the speeds for these storms probably get insane, And so these blizzards, these ice storms, are just literally ripping their spaceships apart and crashing them down to the planet. So I think they even mentioned they lost a couple destroyers just trying to establish a foothold on that planet so that they can like teleport in, right? And so it's barely
hmm.
like this little outpost, but it's necessary for some reason, and we don't really know why. But yeah, I think about the kind of campaigns that the Legion goes on because their leadership demands it, right? We would, if that's the direction they go, we would basically be the same thing. We would have Azeroth at the top, understanding like what she wants to do with the universe and how they want to move forward, and then we're the army that goes and enacts all of that. Or maybe we just go around and save people or something, right? And that's our campaign. Like, but there's if they were to go in that direction, like we would I would imagine we would end up being synonymous with any one of these other factions because the Void is almost like that, even though they don't really group up. Decimus was eating, or not Decimus, Demencius was eating all of them
Right,
and
right.
just consuming everything. So he's sort of the leader, right? Everyone's afraid of that one, and it all kind of goes down from there. Um, the Pantheon is another sort of group. They're a lot smaller in size, but they've got a ton of machinery, right? Like not just the
Hmm.
machinery that's on planets, but all the stone dwarves that they create and the watchers that they create. So they've got like a whole autonomous like legion of their own, right? So they've got an army to fight another army with. And that's kind of like if they go in this direction, that's kind of like what we'll be. We'll just be an army of Azeroth instead of like an army of light or the army of void.
Right, right.
So, and on our one of our last or our last news item here, wanted to talk about the just the physics support that's coming to Wowhead. It's really just a note. It's really interesting if you want to take a look at this. This is really good for checking out like your transmog. If you're really into transmog, it's a great tool. There's some things that look different when they're in game. You know, the the static um, d- sort of animations for these things weren't really accurate for what they look like in game, and I think it's just sometimes it's really hard to get that to render in your browser or render correctly in your browser so you can see it and it looks correctly, right? Like there's a lot of different things with that. It's not a big update. It kind of doesn't really make much of a difference, but to a lot of people, but if you are into transmog, this is going to be a huge quality of life improvement, I think.
Yeah, and it's nice to see because I know that Wowhead even had mentioned that their site has grown kind of stale in terms of them sort of just maintaining it, and they haven't really added a lot to it. I know that for paid members, they're adding, like, for example, news filters that you can sort of um, change to what you want to see on the front page and such. But it's definitely good to see, them sort of just updating things, making sure it's a better experience. And oh, and also they did announce that, and it's a good thing that they're making their none of their authors that they employ use AI, and they are pretty strict about that. That if they do find it, that they are using AI, that they're going to be booted. You know.
Yeah, I saw that they had a really high standard for the articles that are being written. But yeah, they also hire like some of the top class, like the people who are simming, right, for
Hmm.
everything. I think even like some of the leaders of these discords, these class discords, these community leaders and such end up being hired by Wowhead to write these articles, which is the best people to be writing those articles.
Right. The people who actually know and are actually, doing all the calculations, working with the community and such.
Yeah, and writing the guides. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
guide every patch.
Yep. And it's just I'm glad we still have Wowhead. There's been a few other sites that have come and gone.
It used to be elitist jerks is where
Yep.
you get the best, most accurately simmed, most thoroughly simmed information. These they had a really high standard for the information that they posted on their site, and it was updated frequently. And they almost in that era it was like they did all the hard work, and then it kind of trickled down to everybody else after that.
Yeah, and I remember, oh shoot, what was the one that did? They tracked items and they had their own database in Original Classic, because that was really far back, and I can't remember what they were called. But anyway, I also remember having to go to like MMO Champion
Ooh, that's
for,
an old one.
um, yeah, for guides and stuff as well. They do still exist, but I haven't visited their page in eons.
Yeah, they there was a lot of different community sites that we could go to, and Wowhead has been a staple for a really long time, and I'm glad that they've become the de facto for a lot of these things. They definitely deserve it with all the work that they put in.
Hmm.
But I mean, I guess the site's been gotten a little stale, but I mean, I can find everything just fine. I know where everything's at, so I use it for what I know.
Yeah, and I should specify that's sort of what the editor in chief said whenever he did his write up. So it wasn't like, he recognized that they could make some changes to, enhance the site, and wanted to reach out to the Wowhead community, and sort of talk about what's going on.
Yeah, And I'm glad, yeah, glad they're kind of locked in, tuned in there to the community on that one. Um, I wanted to go over some podcast questions that we've got here. Might not get through all of them, but we've got a couple here that we can talk about just to kind of close this out before we talk about our recruitment and the progress that our guild has made. Um, so first question, there's it says, I'm getting my girlfriend into WoW with the power of collecting mounts and decor. She's used to first person shooters and unfamiliar with the combat system. Though I'm hoping the one button rotation helps. Any tips for getting her to 90 so she can start doing what she actually enjoys?
Hmm. Well, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever you buy the Midnight expansion, does it not come with a level boost initially? I can't remember
To,
if they.
yeah, I believe the heroic version comes with a level boost. I don't know that the basic version comes with that.
Okay. So, one of the things I would say is if you have the money, and now obviously she might be just trying it out. Um, and if you would have the money and could do the level boost, that would actually be I think a good um, way to really get her into it. The level boost not only will of course get you the level, but in so doing, that'll really get you into the story sort of immediately. Um, uh, And if memory serves, with this new level boost, if you do start out, they do have a sort of introductory storyline that you can do to get yourself acquainted with World of Warcraft and how that works.
In the
Um,
Arathi Highlands, right?
mhm. um, and um, and there's also a quest, sort of an introductory quest regarding Kazagar. um, but I don't know if that's if you take the level boost. I think you might skip that and go directly to Silvermoon and such. Um, but anyway, level boosts are a great choice. Again, that's if you have the money. Um, Alternatively, there is leveling up together. And right now, the best thing is that we have the turbulent timeways active. And if you're unfamiliar with Turbulent Timeways, it is an event usually at the end or near the end of a season where if you do the dungeons in World of Warcraft through the Dungeon Finder, you get bonus experience. Not only do the dungeons in and of themselves have bonus experiences or experience, but you get a buff. If you do, I believe it's 5 dungeons, get up to 30% bonus experience, not just in doing more dungeons, but just doing quests and just anything you get experience with, it'll be a bonus too. So it's a great time to jump in during the turbulent timeways, which are active now until I believe about 2 or 3 weeks from now. So taking advantage of that, not only will you get this experience, you can also get a brand spanking new mount. The It's a ice dragon Veranos spawn, I believe it's what it's called. So I think even doing that and doing it for 4 weeks, getting that bonus experience, not only will help her learn the game. It'll help her sort of appreciate, what a dungeon is, questing, how the flowing of that works, and even getting in a free mount through the achievement. And I believe you can still get the 4 turbulent timeways. Like you have to do those 5 dungeons for 4 weeks to count for the achievement to get that mount. So if you would do those 5 dungeons for those 4 weeks, you could tell her, you get an achievement, and with that achievement, you get this really cool ice dragon mount, and that'll help her to also not only learn but hopefully love the idea of getting the achievements, getting that progress, getting that I hate to say it, but that sort of dopamine hit of wow, this is really cool. I did something really neat, and I got this really cool mount that I can use, wherever I go. So I think those are the the really the few things that I would focus on: turbulent timeways, maybe a level boost, and maybe even doing the sort of the free trial experience where it puts you on the boat with Jaina Proudmoore and the rest of the heroes to see sort of, start out, see what class she might like, and even what rate the race looks like. Because, for example, as a paladin, I love the way a human paladin looks like, but Draenei paladins look really cool to me. Same thing with blood elf. She might like a blood elf paladin, but maybe not a blood elf mage, just because of the way the cloth looks like on her. So, that sort of thing. So you got a lot of options, even just, seeing you play and see, sort of like the grand bosses, and especially for something like Dimensius, just seeing what players are able to do.
Yeah, yeah, those are all like really good, great suggestions. The only thing I would say is, and not just with saving money, but you would think that if all they want to do is collect mounts and decor, and just kind of the collecting of things is what you're aiming to get her into the game with. Um, the idea, so there was a mention that they were into first person shooters, and so there's definitely this idea of like earning stuff, right? You play Call of Duty, you got to
Hmm.
earn the guns, you got to earn the attachments that you put on that. You play these different games, maybe Fortnite. I know it's a third person shooter, but it's a shooter, and same thing. There's all these RPG elements. So I think that because games have been driven forward with a lot of like RPG elements in them for replayability. There's a lot of things that make sense in World of Warcraft. Not that World of Warcraft specifically inspired so many games, but RPGs, like the systems that are in there that get a lot of gameplay, have trickled out into the rest of the game just ecosystem. And so video games have just picked all of these pieces up and implemented them in their own little ways. And so I think it's really going to be a pretty easy transition in terms of that. But you would think that if all you want to do is just very specific tasks that might not always include raiding or doing dungeons and stuff like that, you might want to just get the boost, get to 80, and then only do the last 10 levels till you get to 90. Um, that might not be best because you're gonna have to get used to the dungeons at some point, and might as well grind some out while you're leveling. And you only have to spend $15 a month. You can take your time with it. You can stop your subscription anytime you want and come back. You don't have to buy the expansion until you get to 80 and you're ready to go into the midnight expansion. So when you pay for the subscription, you get every expansion before the most current one for free. So you have the last one was the War Within, so you can access all of that and every expansion before it. So just go through everything and level up. In terms of hoping to use the one button rotation, I will say that when I helped my wife set up for playing the game, I went through a lot in setting the UI up so that it looked proper and it was easy and not overwhelming with all of the information that WoW can give you. A lot of that stuff is not necessary. Um, it does obfuscate some of these things away from the player, so some of these things would like end up being just a question mark, right? And you're so used to all these systems, you're gonna like overlook it, and she's gonna have no idea how to spend this certain currency or where to get this one thing at. And so I would suggest unlocking some of the UI over time because you can use your UI editor and hide a lot of things, but start to like pull those things out or use some of these features in different ways and such so that there's a sort of understanding of like how the game works in general in those general game loops. But for when I set this up for my wife, I used the controller add-on um, console port, and I put the one button rotation on one of the main face buttons, and you just spam that. There's a couple movement things that you kind of learn with certain classes, but mostly my wife just spams that one button and it takes care of her rotation. She's able to move and move the camera with the sticks, and you don't have to use a controller, but the same concept applies. You can show her the keybind for where your movement keys are, and then put the one button rotation really close to that, and then you're good to go. And just focus on surviving and pushing that one button, and you're good to go. I think range classes benefit from this pretty well because melee classes are really hard to see in the fray of things, and so in the earlier levels it might not be a problem, but then you get into like the higher content and there's just a lot of noise on the field, and that could cause some issues. But if you didn't put anything else except for the one button rotation on her bars, she would actually be fine. You're not gonna be able, like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If the player doesn't know much about the movement stuff, or like you're playing a hunter and you don't know to disengage and to get away or do something right, like, you weren't going to use that button anyways, and you can just sort of add them to the bars slowly as she gets used to the one button rotation. You go, oh well, here's this one more button. You can add that into your understanding of how this works, and just slowly add these spells in, because she's going to level through all the levels really really fast. It's going to ask you to pick talents. You're going to be making choices, getting spells, getting abilities. You're going to feel the need to put them all on your bars. For a new player, that doesn't is not necessary. Just just put the one button on there, and then slowly add it in, because with turbulent timeways she's going to level so fast that by the time she gets there, if you've just been adding everything, I mean, by the time you're halfway there, your bars are full.
Exactly. Um, and one of the things, never feel ashamed about using the one button rotation. It's there for a reason.
Oh, definitely. And especially for members of our community who are disabled, the one button rotation is a godsend. It allows you
hmm
to participate in content, and even, perhaps not competitive content like, rating at the mythic level. But it does allow you to do things like a level 6 ritual site, or a tier 12 delve, these higher tier things that, you can do the really hard mythic, or not mythic, it's just whatever the hardest level for prey is, where you're getting attacked out in the wild while you're doing your dailies. um, you can do that with the one button rotation. You're able to engage with the game in a way, and that you want to, and you don't have to learn the ins and outs of the class. You can eventually, but there's also the thing is, you might not want to stay with that class. You might want to change it up and jump to another class. If you've learned to focus on just utilizing the one button rotation and slowly adding everything else in as you read the spell and truly understand it, then put it on your bar, um, then you can jump to any class and just take it all the way to the top. You can't do it with healer, and tank will be a little hard, but um, yeah, yeah. Tank is definitely a lot harder to do that with. So it's almost in the same boat as the healer. But any DPS class that you pick, ranged or melee, it'll be easy with the one button rotation and slowly adding your spells in.
hmm
And we were actually we're gonna go into our on another question here before we wrap this up. And we were actually kind of talking a little bit about this earlier. So this one's more of like a formal question, and maybe like, what are you hoping that it takes us, or maybe like, maybe it's not the light like we had assumed, and it's something else. But here, so the question is, with 12.1 focusing on the Amani, where do you think 12.2 will take us, assuming it's on track to be the last major patch of Midnight?
I think I agree with you, Squirrelthug, that we're going to see the Army of the Light, or at the very least, I 100% agree that that's where we should go. Um, I would love to, really see a just sort of a dramatic uh, battle at the end, whether it's with Zalatath directly, or you know some sort of surrogate for her. Maybe Zalatath lives until either the beginning or the end of the next expansion. But what I want to see is, that climactic battle and to also, I really do hope to see that Erator, Illyria, and Turalyon um, come together as a family. You know, as uh, as old as that might make me seem, you know, I'd just love to see that, especially for characters that um, we've, you know, really grown up with. For me, I didn't play in Classic, and really I only started on a free trial in Burning Crusade, and then I really started in Wrath. So I didn't really understand or know a lot about Illyria or Turalyon, and I didn't play the original Warcraft RTSs and stuff. But as I was going through, you know, I would hear about Turalyon and Illyria, and then when I got to Legion, that's when they really first put Erator in there. And as a paladin and the paladin class hall, you get to know Erator, and I learned about him. And then you see Turalyon, and you get to see him not only before we get to see him physically at the end of Legion, but there's a point where in the class hall there's like a holographic transmission, and um, Turalyon is saying, you know, um, how much he like misses his son, and um you know, he's basically doing a report, but he's still mentioning his son and how much him and Illyria miss him and love him. And poor Erator is still there, you know, um not able to see him. And then now we're in this expansion, really get to see Erator and everything, and just the heartbreak of them being divided between each other. And you know, we don't know yet what the status is of Turalyon and Illyria, because they fell through that um, what was the I'm blanking on the name, the
Oh, the Crown of
Dawnwell.
the Cosmos,
Uh,
right?
w-
With
yeah.
Illyria up at the top of the platform, they fell down off
hmm
the Void Spire.
Yeah, and they went through the corrupted Dawnwell, or I believe they call it the
Did they
Dawnwell
go
now.
into it?
Yes, and we don't know where they're at, or you know, what's going on. Um, so um, you know, are they safe? Are they not? It's really up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know what's going on. And I know there was like a lot of conversation and discussion over the scenes with the Amani and Torellian and Arator and I maybe it was Zul'Jan that was gonna take the hit from Torellian. Zul'Jara's brother.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he's the one that led the campaign into Eversong to go grab all that lightwood.
And it was Erator who intervened in, you know, not only didn't want anybody to fight, but actually physically intervened and got hit by Turalyon.
Yeah, and I think that the conversation that happened around that in the community was like, oh, we shouldn't be upset with Torellian. He did the right thing, blah blah blah. And there are two types of people who had that opinion. One are people who are just wrong, and two are people who are trolling. So sorry if you're either one of those, knowing or unknowingly, but the Blizzard is obviously writing a story here, and they're telling a story, and they're trying to convey something to us, the player base, to the audience. They're trying to tell us there's something up with the light that, in its reaction to this void assault, is doing something that no one in their thousands of years of life have ever seen anything like this happen. However, we see the Amani, who are a little bit on the other side, right? Like if you were to see a blood elf and see how they portray themselves, you know, they think that they're proper or that they are righteous or just, you know, just in their ways. And the Amani would be, you know, the antithesis of that in every single way. Whereas the Amani just think that they're just doing things as they normally do, and they see many of the actions of the elves to be monstrous, right? And so there are a lot of things that are kind of being revealed to us right now, but one of the main things is that the light is not what anybody has ever known it to be, and they've only ever gotten a taste of it. And now that Xalatath is sort of forcing this this situation, she's able to manipulate the manifestation of the light in this way. And they've seen the light bloom and what it can do in certain ways, and even the Haranir recognize it from Harandar, but it's never been this aggressive. And so there's just these crazy things that are happening. We have to accept that Torellian in that moment was empowered by the light in this new version of the light. It's on a different frequency, it's on a different wavelength, it's doing something different, and that is where that situation was going. That is the reason why that story was told, why that scene played out, why we had to watch that happen. Terrellian is not just a normal dude who did the right thing trying to cut an Amani in half and wasn't able to stop his sword in time before it hit Arator. Like, that's not at all. Like, he's super powerful and he's a righteous being. Like, he would have done something else. He would have swung the sword at his leg first before hitting his son. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this guy is a swordsman, a great swordsman. You're gonna tell me I've played with swords before. I'm not an expert, but I've swung them around before. Like, I've practiced with them. I've like studied it and such, right? And so I've gotten a little good at like hitting certain targets on a body, right? I will tell you right now, I can when I was good at it, I can swing for your head, make you think I'm gonna hit that, and I'll hit something completely different. Right? It's all it's all in your wrist. And so you're gonna tell me that Terrellian couldn't just like get around that, like even if he got blindsided, I don't know. I think he's a much more powerful character, but he was blinded by the light. In the same way that we see the examples of the paladins who stand in our way before Illyria, right? Like the same way that we see Lothraxians stand in our way when we're trying to make negotiations with Decimus and such. Like these, they are overreacting and doing crazy things. And yeah, I think that's a really good place to take this story and answer that because we've literally not gotten any answer. We've only gotten questions about the light. We've not gotten any answers for it.
Yeah, and just you know just hoping to see some of those answers. And um, obviously, in a game like this, there's always going to be some questions. That way, you can play the next expansion. But I really do hope that we do see more answers to a lot of these questions we've had in the past, like you mentioned with the light and everything, and not just that, but more of what's going on in the entire universe that Azeroth is based in.
What zone do you think it'll be in? We've already gotten two in Harandar.
Yeah,
Both the one boss raids have been there.
my guess is it's either going to be someplace else, not necessarily on a new planet like Valor or Nagatal, but I would say either someplace we haven't been. Like, let's say we have to go through whatever
Ooh, the Darkwell. We have to
portal.
take the Darkwell.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The same place that uh, uh, that Turalian and Illyria fell through. We're going to have to follow them in, and again, it was because there's Illyria, Varisa, and Valyria, and I get those two or all three confused. It's Varisa, sister of Sylvanas
Yes.
and Illyria. Whenever at the end where we defeat Laura, she's there and to help us, and she's there, of course, with her. I believe is it her grandson is Erator. I forget if it's grandson or nephew. Either way,
Nephew, I believe. Yeah.
nephew. Okay.
His sister to Illyria.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very hard to keep these things together.
Yeah, those families.
Um, but anyway, she was there not only to help us, but to help Erator through all this. And so, I want to see, what we'll probably have to do is, conjure up the dark well again and make a portal and go through it, and take the army of the light as well as the now united elves through it, because we do have that ending battle, with the Renderai, the Blood Elves, the Kelderai, and we see the, all the, not just the elves, but we see all the ancients that we get to help us. We also see all the like the trebuchets and other uh, uh, like uh, war equipment that they have. So it might just be an all-out battle at that point, or maybe they'll, um, maybe it'll just be us champions going through with like Illyria and such, but the elves will keep Silvermoon and the rest of the continent safe. Who knows? But I definitely think we're going to go like through the dark well, and it's going to put us in some void place, or maybe it's going to put us in something completely different.
Yeah, I'm curious to where Xalatath had went with all of those void creatures. You could see them streaming straight down into the void or into the well. Um, but yeah, I can't imagine they were going into the well in that sense. They just definitely into the planet somewhere. And I mean, it's a huge planet. I mean, we found what was underneath Kazalgar, and that was crazy, and that's just a small little island in what was beneath it. So I'm sure there's tons of different places that are in here, and it could be a Titan facility. Like we could really be
Hmm.
leaning into the Titan stuff right before the last Titan, and we could be going to the next Ulduar, for to close out this patch. They like to do really big raids, so whatever it is going to be on a grand scale. But yeah,
That that
hopefully,
that might even lead us into Northern.
yeah, yeah. The cliffhanger is her running in Northrend, and we got to chase.
That'd be pretty epic.
But then if we're sort of trying to tie that up, but Zaldath is obviously going to be leading this story into the next expansion, and we still have to tie up this sort of light army of the light stuff and the light vanguard. Maybe those two forces clash in a way that we have to contend with both of them in that
Hmm.
in that dark place.
Right.
So that's going to be it for us. And I did want to mention our progress this week. We did get Fallen King Saladar down. He is basically going to be on farm now, as we normally do. We have also gotten Rotmeyer down in Sporefall, and in the Dream Rift we've killed Chimeras as well on Mythic. So we've gotten those bosses down, and the first three in Voidspire. So Aversian, Veracius, and Saladbar have all been down, and we are currently working on Veilgar and Azarak, and they're definitely challenging, but they seem to be much simpler than Saladar. I think we're gonna get through these ones in less pools. But so far, one full night of pulls on them, and then I think like after we killed Saladar, we did like 3 or 4 pulls before we ended the night that night. So we're going, but as soon as as soon as they're down and the paladins are down, Valeria is gonna, I think, be that wall for us. But I
Hmm.
mean, everybody's so geared now. I think I feel like paladins are gonna be no, yeah, I think paladins are gonna be the wall. Valeria is gonna be fairly easy for us to get through, and we'll probably swoop right past Bellerin, and then we get to contend with. I'm just really excited to get to Laura before the end of the
Hmm.
season.
Yeah.
Even if we have to skip, like, oh hey, we didn't get to Illyria or something like. I think it would be good to just finish out the season running the reps on Laura.
Agreed. Yeah. And uh, like you said, not only are we geared, but I think we really have we're getting to the point where we have um, good set, a good number of raiders with us. We're still looking for more. Maybe another healer or two, and definitely some DPS. But as far as our core is concerned, we got a good core. We got a few or one or two people that maybe aren't there every night. I know Astro Wubble isn't necessarily there every night, but we have an extra person. And as far as Velgor and Ezreik are concerned, on our first real night that we did pools, which was on Thursday, we got them down to 34%.
Oh wow, yeah.
We
That's going down so fast.
Yeah, we were contending mostly with the mechanics and the adjustments with them, um, and um, uh, and me personally, I know at the end I was instructing us sort of wrong on the second intermission because I got confused with the way Liquid had their raid plan. But as soon as we get through that second intermission, with a lot of raiders up, I think it's a kill.
Yeah, yeah, we were getting pretty good. It's just there's so much happening, and honestly, with the repositioning for the orbs, as a healer, I'm really glad I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I try to get in a position so I'm able to heal everybody who's getting hit by that orb anyways, and so I'm in that direction. But yeah, when those come out, like there's so much damage going around that I would yeah, I don't know. Maybe if we split the healers up, if we split the healers up in a way, we could probably get them to do that. That way, there's like one who's doing the move, and the rest of
Hmm.
them are still like outputting the heals. But right now, it's working as it is. And like you said, we
Yeah.
got down to 34%. That's pretty dang good. And this next week we'll probably get them down, and we'll be at Paladins, the real challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And um, hopefully the nerfs, especially with the dispels, because God have mercy on us. There's a lot of dispels with I believe is it curse or magic? I think it's curse because what Liquid did or had to do was take a bunch of their players, have them switch to warlocks to do a bunch of dispels. But if memory
Oh man.
serves, they really nerfed that. So
Oh, thank
um,
God.
I think we'll be good as far as that's concerned. But yeah, they are a wall, and but I think we're getting to it, and um, we'll be good going forward.
Yeah, Paladins is a very overwhelming fight. Like, oh my God, is it busy?
Hmm.
And like right away. Like the first that you pull, and there's just like shields everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's they they really decided to go all out with the visuals.
Oh yeah, they give you the full Paladin experience. Yeah, now I know what a raid boss feels like when we roll up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Having these three paladins just shoot off all their spells is insane. But in the same way that the last council fight in Mana Forge with the demon hunters were, this is really like a love letter to paladins. It's each of the specs, and they're all just the play style, the way they exact their spells, like everything that they're doing is um, on point with how like paladins play. I think I love that.
Yeah, same.
It's really cool to fight a class as a boss, right? I
Hmm.
I don't know if people are getting tired of like the council fights, but I've not really been interested in council fights before. But the demon hunters one and this paladins one, these are very interesting, specifically for the fact that they are tuning the bosses and such to play like players.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just cool too visually.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's so
it's
cool.
the only issue is for us as tanks is managing
Oh, for
that
you, you're a
that
paladin.
yeah,
You're
that
throwing your spells, they're throwing their spells.
hmm
Everybody's got consecrate down. It's crazy. Yeah, that fight's going to be really interesting. I can't wait till we get those guys down. But for this next one, we're definitely gonna have to remember to take a picture in front of those two dead dragons.
Yes, yes, that's we keep forgetting.
I gotta get an
Uh,
add-on that just announces on my screen whenever I get that one specific achievement.
mm-hmm.
Just write up a little script to just blow up on my screen when it happens, just so I remember. All right, so we're gonna close it out here now. We had a couple more questions, but we can get to those on the next podcast. Um, Before we go, if you want to support the show, the best way is through our Patreon. Every bit helps us keep the lights on, improve the production, and keep this going every week. You can find us at patreon.com/lastattemptpod. If you can't spare the gold, that's totally fine. You can still help in a big way at no cost. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'd love to see you drop a rating. 5-star rating and a review would go a long way, helps legitimize the podcast. And the biggest thing you can do for us is help new listeners find us. So if you know somebody that used to play or that is interested in playing, send us to them. We're always talking about current events and what's happening, all the new exciting things. So definitely easy way to keep up with that and get motivated to get into the game. You can also find us on YouTube, among our other socials, Twitter or X, the Everything app, Instagram, TikTok, and now at Twitch as well. And our username on all of those platforms is Last Attempt Pod. Um, there's always a Discord link in the description. You can find us there. Join the Discord. There's you know podcast questions channel. There's a channel for joining up with second attempts, you want to apply to our guild. Again, we're looking for flex players right now, and as a healer, I'm leaning over into flex for balance. Just even maybe even seeing where warriors are at, or what else do I have? I've got a rogue. Let's see where combat, or not combat. Sorry, combat's been gone for a long time. His outlaw rogue. I'm gonna see where the outlaw rogue is sitting at, because I still have calamity, and maybe I can bring her out for next season or something. So we're getting all those alts leveled and stuff. But being a flex player is really important. For the raid going forward now we've got like a full team. I think we have put ourselves in a position where we now get to choose.
Right.
So we'll be looking and prioritizing flex players, but of course, any exceptional applicant will still be considered. So if you are an exceptional player, please still apply, even if you don't flex. If you just have one role that you play, we will always consider those. So definitely don't forget about us. You can find us on plenty of places. I believe we are in Warcraft logs. There should be a post there with our link and information and description for us there. We're second attempt on Sargeras, and you can find us here in our podcast channel on Discord. Yeah, so it'd be hopefully we see some of you guys in there, and we get some new recruits in there. You can also find us in game, because I just updated the guild recruitment for our guild in game, and so it got another 30 days for the refresh.
Nice.
Yeah, and so for our personal plugs, we want to ask Templar, what's your easy to follow URL for your Twitch?
Yes, you can just type in the URL, thehumandistraction.com, all one word, and it'll take you straight to my Twitch page. Again, I noticed some people in our guild have had a little trouble where sometimes it wouldn't redirect. Um, you might have to type it in, a couple times for it to work, but it still works.
Yes, and also to know, it is a redirect, so there's very likely it's like a very simple script that's being run on that page. If you've got certain security on your browsers where like unknown scripts are disallowed from running, I've had that before. Then you'll have to make sure that you specifically allow them for that site, because it is going to redirect you to the Twitch.
Right.
And for me, you can find me at if I ever decide to stream again, which I've got aspirations. I'm going to do it someday. That will be at twitch.tv/squirrelthug underscore. And yeah, I will also definitely, again, just to mention, we at some point are going to be streaming these podcasts. So we'll have our cameras up and we'll be on. We'll be live on our Twitch, so and that of course is same as all the other ones, twitch.tv/Last Attempt Pod. And that's it for us. Thanks for joining us again. We really appreciate all the listeners that we have. Appreciate all you guys viewing on YouTube and giving us all those views and such on all these platforms. Try to find us on our socials and reach out. Give us some likes over there. Give them some comments, some activities, so we can get things going. Yeah, appreciate everyone being here and appreciate our co-host. Thanks. See you.
Laters.